Let me just mention what's happening with the big beautiful bill because
The Mark Thompson Show.
it's definitely big. I'm not sure how beautiful it is, and it does appear that to get it through the Senate with minimal changes, Donald Trump is pressing the flesh. He worked the phones yesterday, took to social media to try to sway Republican holdouts on his multi-trillion-dollar tax bill. Of course, this is to extend the Trump tax cuts. And he's getting conflicting demands, as it's reported, from GOP senators, even as he urges them to move swiftly. He passed the House by one vote, faces opposition from moderates and, of course, the ultra-conservatives in the Senate who don't want to see this deficit blown up. He can afford to lose no more than 3 votes in the Senate. And he said this on Truth Social, the Bible for all of MAGA. With the Senate coming back to Washington today, I call on all my Republican friends in the Senate and House to work as fast as they can to get this bill to my desk before the 4th of July. Yeah, that's a good point. You want this bill done before the big military parade. When is that, Kim? That's soon, though.
June, is it 14th? I don't know.
Not going to make it. It's not going to make it. No.
I was reading an article about how much it's going to cost to repair the streets after all the tanks roll through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I think I want to say that Washington, D.C. is still waiting to be reimbursed for Trump season 1 when he had the big, remember there was a huge event, season 1 of Donald Trump.
Well, what do we know about that? Don't hold your breath for the money.
There's a basic rule of thumb when it comes to the federal budget. The government should spend heavily during times of crisis, recessions, wars, pandemics, and then get its fiscal house in order when the crisis passes. So it is noted in a piece from the New York Times that speaks to where we're headed. The tax and spending bill passed by the House totally turns that rule on its head. Trillions added to the debt. Unemployment is low. The economy is solid by most measures. It's what I've been saying to you for a while. That's going to make it much harder for the government to come to the rescue in the next downturn because they are using all of their political capital and fiscal capital on this. They're expected to take up this bill in the Senate. It would extend most of the tax cuts enacted during President Trump's first term, or as we call it on this show, the President Trump season 1 offering. It would add billions of dollars in new tax breaks for tipped workers, business owners, and other groups. It would cut spending, but it's not cutting spending nearly as much. The total that the bill is going to add is trillions to the national debt over the next decade. So that comes on top of a sea of red ink that is near record levels in recent decades. Of course, we've dealt with pandemics and other huge expenditures. We had strong economic growth in 2000. Spending cuts under President Bill Clinton. The federal debt load was about a third the size of the annual economic output. Since then, decades of tax cuts, spending increases, and now this measure of the debt burden, as noted here, has roughly tripled to about 100% of GDP. That's the highest level since World War II. And at a rate of growth that experts across the political spectrum say is unsustainable. So we are kind of entering a crisis period. An economist at the University of California at Berkeley, David Romer, who has studied the impact of government deficits, says, I'm extraordinarily concerned about the fiscal implications of all of this. We're starting from high levels of debt, high levels of deficits, projected growing budgetary pressure from an aging population, and the investors are already jittery about this. So this is not just hypothetical, he says. A lot of economists fall into this category, that investors are going to balk at lending the government money. They're going to demand huge interest rates if they do lend the government money. You know, understand when we say lending the government money, we're talking about buying bonds. So now you're going to be paying these bondholders huge interest rates, and you see how this just spirals. The interest rates add further to the debt. Investors are, because of the growing debt, more reluctant to lend, and eventually, government borrowing goes up, up, up. So economists are all warning on this, that increasing the debt during a period of relative economic strength is running the risk that the tipping point is going to come at the worst possible moment when the government needs to run large deficits to respond to a war or another pandemic. Already, the federal government, this, spends more each year on interest on the debt than it does on national defense. So if the House bill becomes law, federal debt could exceed 125% of GDP by 2034. That would be the highest ever in America.
You know what else is in the big, beautiful bill? I didn't realize this. De Hageball says there's a provision to prevent any regulation of AI for 10 years. And so I did some searching, and De Hageball's right. 10 years, a decade, and we can't regulate AI?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, this idea that there shouldn't be regulation of any kind, that they just want to get rid of all this burdensome regulation. I mean, and this is the way they package this. How would you like AI and technology to flourish if you're going to regulate them all the time? You've got to get rid of these burdensome regulations. These are protections. You want AI running amok? You've already seen what happens when one of these tech bros busts into the government and decides to shake up the snow globe. That was Elon Musk. He dismantled huge parts of government, vital parts of government. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead now as a result of cutting off USAID programs. They're dead. And the beauty of America, the essence of America, the wondrous part of America, that we do fund so many programs for famine relief, for disease relief. Those wondrous parts of America are gone because that guy went in there and cut a program that's like a rounding error. It's so little, but he cut USAID because USAID was on the back of Elon Musk. There were regulatory pressures from USAID for his companies. Same was true at EPA. That's why he went after these agencies. Now, I think they likely would have cut these agencies anyway, but why did he make them top priorities, Elon Musk? Because it was a personal vendetta, if you will. He wanted to get them off his back. He wanted that regulatory aspect to those agencies to end, at least as far as he was concerned. But so anyway, back to AI. The idea somehow that these guys of the sort, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, these guys who have tremendous power with these technologies that are so much at the essence now of the future of government, that they go unregulated. It's chilling. It's really chilling. That AI would be unregulated is chilling. And this is true. It grants put that back up there. That's true. A Northern Tier FPV says it grants the executive branch judicial immunity. They snuck that one in too. There's a bunch of stuff snuck in. That's right. So any judicial injunction, for example, on the president's power, that has been snuck into the bill. That does not apply to the executive branch. So there are a lot of these things that have been embedded in this big, beautiful bill that aren't directly related to any sort of fiscal policy. They're related to governmental policy. And so there are a lot of examples like this. And again, the reason this bill is endangered is not because of that. It's because of budgetary considerations. The reason like a Rand Paul is against it isn't because of that stuff. It's because he feels it's going to bloat this deficit. There's no question it's going to bloat the deficit. I just ran through all the numbers for you. So, then you get to Medicare, then you get to all of these, what they call entitlement programs, and you see all the damage that can be done. So I'm not sure the future of the big, beautiful bill. I mean, it is in the Senate, but I also know Trump is a threatening figure. Politically threatening. Were his causes more righteous, that would be a great thing. He gets on the phone like LBJ used to. And LBJ used to get those votes. He'd call senator by senator.
Down the list.
And now Trump is doing that, leaning on all of these legislators in a big way. And Musk, as you know, is someone who has not been apologetic in the least about his feelings about this big, beautiful bill. And he said, hey, this is antithetical to what I was doing. Now, you know, as well as I do, and we talked about the fact that what he was doing, in addition to being reckless and awful, just from the standpoint of the chaos it created and how vital government agencies and vital employees of government were dismissed, it also, the idea was to save money. I mean, it's all this, waste, fraud, and abuse crap. They raise that flag of waste, fraud, and abuse. We're doing this for waste, fraud, and abuse. We've got to root out waste, fraud, and abuse. Are you telling me that you don't back an effort to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse? Yeah, except you're not doing that. You're just closing down government agencies and government programs where there is no real waste, fraud, and abuse. So Musk's ethic, Musk's stated goal was to do that. And so in response to that, now he's saying, hey, your big bloated budget doesn't do that. Now we know, again, as an aside, I would just say, we know that Musk didn't do that either, but that was the flag he was flying. But he's saying, you guys are bloating this deficit to the point that it just is against everything that we were working for. So Republicans now are pushing back on that criticism because that criticism had gone out there. And this tax cut that will be extended and Medicaid and other things that are on the table, those are all things that they are busting back on Musk for flagging. Representative Darren LaHood from Illinois said that Musk, who complained about the bill increasing the budget deficit, doesn't know what he's talking about. I would disagree with Elon in the sense that he doesn't understand how the tax bill works. This is going to be a rocket fuel for the economy. Is that right? It'll be rocket fuel for the richest economy, the elite economy, those people who need that tax cut. I mean, the bill calls for $4 trillion or more in tax cuts and increased spending, but less than $2 trillion in spending cuts. I mean, that's where it all sits. I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, Musk said, I should say, which increases the budget deficit, not just decreases it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing. He didn't say anything about how legislation is going to cut benefits for the poor to finance tax cuts for the rich. He just made...
He doesn't care about that.
Right. He's just talking about the numbers, not penciling out. So that's...
What's interesting is the minute he said this, it really upset the hardline GOP folks that are, whatever Trump wants, let's give it to him. And it seems like right around the same time, those allegations of drug use and a box following him around DC with the whatever pills in it emerged. And maybe it's true that he had a drug box, and it seems to be true that he partakes in ketamine and other things, but it seems to be a discrediting tactic.
I love that Kim is making this point because it is true that one of the tactics used when you're trying to silence someone is the idea that you smear them to the point that their credibility no longer exists. Mm-hmm. So just as Musk was built up as this brilliant entrepreneur, richest man in the world, he's going to bring that brilliance and efficiencies to U.S. government. When he turned, even just mildly, I mean, I thought his comments about the big, beautiful bill were pretty tepid. But when he turned, now you have potentially what Kim's talking about, which is they leak all of this stuff regarding drug abuse, regarding a kind of character assassination. You know who they did this with? They did this with Elliot Spitzer. Do you remember Elliot Spitzer? Elliot Spitzer was this crusader against Wall Street who was prosecuting a lot of Wall Street malfeasance. And if you look, and this was really documented in a movie called, I want to say it was called Client Number 9 or something like but it was really a great breakdown.
Google it.
Yeah, you can find the name. It took Wall Street, very much threatened by what Spitzer was doing, it took them no time to concoct a plan to destroy Elliot Spitzer. And how are they going to do it? They were going to do it by showing that he was a client of this call girl. And here he is crusading against Wall Street, right? He's the district attorney, or what was he? You can tell, I forget his official title. And there it is, client number 9. Yeah, the rise and fall of Elliot Spitzer. But here's the key, and here's why there's a parallel. Because he was really holding Wall Street to account. I mean, on criminal charges for criminal malfeasance that he could prove in court. And they were worried to the point that they set him up. Client number 9, you should see that movie, is about the fact that he was a client of this call girl. And to be fair, you know, when you're the lead justice officer, you shouldn't be doing something illegal like seeing a sex worker and you're paying for sex. But be that as it may, it became a huge story because they made sure that they did the character assassination necessary to destroy Elliot Spitzer. That is what happened there. There's a part of this Elon Musk thing that may quack like that, like Kim's saying. All of a sudden, Musk is off his leash and he is talking about how the big, beautiful bill actually will bloat the deficit and worked against those things that you said you were for. And now they're all after him. And what's the way to destroy him? Character assassination, drug use. He's out of it. And since we all already are not fans of Elon Musk, look at his polling numbers. He polls like lower than the Democrats do, and they're down in the 20s. It's an easy target. So I love that take, Kim. I actually think that there may be some truth to it.
Well, it's interesting because they knew this all along about Elon Musk. We all have known about the ketamine use and other things. And so it's not like a new discovery. Maybe the drug box following him around DC is a new discovery, but it's not like we didn't know that Elon Musk partakes, right?
That's
But
right.
now all of a sudden, because he disagreed, and it's not like he turned on Trump, he just disagreed, saying, look, you hired me to cut, and now you're inflating the deficit. I thought we were supposed to be going the other way.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's your worst offense.
Right. The charm of his drug use is gone.
Right.
Now let's play it. Yeah, Christ, he smoked weed on Joe Rogan, says Dan. That's exactly right. I mean, nothing here that we didn't. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.